I stood there at the reception, holding a glass of champagne I hadn't even tasted yet. The music was soft, the lights warm, the room filled with people who were supposed to be celebrating our union. But all I could hear was the echo of my new father-in-law's voice, slicing through the laughter like a knife. "He's not a real man," he had said, his tone dripping with disdain. "Just a broke loser." And then the part that cut deeper than anything, Emily, my wife of less than 2 hours, laughed. Not the awkward, "let's change the subject" kind of laugh. No. This was a laugh that lingered, like she found it funny. I'd met Emily 2 years ago. I was working at a small architecture firm, struggling to pay off my student loans. She was everything I wasn't: polished, wealthy, effortlessly confident. Her father, Richard Carmichael, was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar investment firm. The kind of man whose watch alone could clear my debts. I never pretended to be in his league financially. But I believed, naively perhaps, that love didn't have to be a transaction. From day one, Richard made it clear I wasn't his choice for his daughter. He didn't bother to hide it. At dinner one night early on, he had asked me what kind of car I drove. When I told him, he chuckled and said, "Well, at least it's not public transport." Emily laughed then too, though she later told me he was just teasing. I tried to brush off his remarks, convincing myself that once he saw how much I cared for his daughter, he'd warm up to me. But standing in that lavish ballroom, his words still ringing in my ears, I realized he had never warmed up. In fact, this was probably his final stamp of disapproval, served up on the very day I had promised to spend my life with Emily. The guests around us chuckled nervously, pretending not to notice the tension. Emily leaned into her father, still smiling, still laughing. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just that she didn't defend me, it was that she seemed to agree. I excused myself, walking toward the edge of the room, pretending to admire the towering floral arrangements. My best man, Daniel, followed me, his expression tight. "Hey," he murmured. "I heard that. You okay?" "I'm fine," I lied, though my hands were gripping the glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. But inside, a storm was brewing. This wasn't about one insult. This was about respect, or the complete lack of it. And I knew right then that this wedding was no fairy tale. What I didn't know was that the night was about to get much worse. Dinner was served, though I could barely taste a thing. The clinking of cutlery and the hum of conversation around me felt distant, muffled, like I was underwater. Emily chatted happily with the guests at our table, her old college friends, her father's business partners, as if nothing had happened. I studied her face, trying to read something there. An apology. A glance that said I didn't mean it. But she never looked my way. Halfway through the main course, Richard raised his glass. "A toast," he announced, his voice commanding the attention of the entire room. I set down my fork, bracing myself. "To my beautiful daughter, Emily. You've always had impeccable taste, though." His eyes slid toward me, that same condescending smirk on his lips. "I suppose even the best make unexpected choices." Laughter rippled through the room. My chest tightened. Emily giggled, her cheeks flushed, not from embarrassment, but from amusement. I could see Daniel staring at me from across the table, silently urging me not to take the bait. I forced a smile, raising my own glass. "To Emily," I said simply, ignoring the weight of Richard's jab. The guests clinked glasses, and I downed the champagne in one swallow. After dinner came the speeches. Emily's maid of honor delivered a touching, funny tribute that had the crowd wiping away tears. Then it was my turn. I had planned to speak about love, about partnership, about how Emily had changed my life. But when I stood there, microphone in hand, my rehearsed words felt like a lie. Instead, I said, "Marriage is about respect. It's about standing by each other in every moment, the beautiful ones, and the ones that test you." My gaze flicked toward Emily, who tilted her head but didn't smile. "It's about choosing someone every single day, and making sure they know they are enough, no matter what the world thinks." The applause was polite, but I noticed Richard's jaw tighten. Emily looked away. As the evening wore on, I slipped out to the terrace, needing air. The city lights stretched out in the distance, glittering like they belonged to another world, one I didn't quite fit into. That's when I heard the voices behind me. "He'll never be able to give you the life you deserve," Richard was saying. Emily's voice was softer, but it still carried. I know, Dad. But it's done now. We'll see how long it lasts. My breath caught. My stomach turned cold. It was one thing to suspect she didn't believe in me. It was another to hear her say it. On our wedding night. I stayed frozen in the shadows, my hands trembling. The laughter and music inside seemed miles away now. If this was how our marriage began, what hope was there for where it would end? I didn't walk back inside right away. I just stood there, staring out at the skyline, my chest tight. The night air was cool, but my skin burned. Every memory of Emily telling me she believed in us felt like a cruel joke now. I thought about the years I'd spent working 2 jobs, scraping together savings for this wedding. The sacrifices I'd made just to prove I could be enough for her. When I finally stepped back into the ballroom, Emily was at the center of the dance floor, laughing as she spun in her father's arms. The photographer's flash caught the moment, her beaming, him grinning, and me standing at the edge, watching like I didn't belong in the picture. Daniel found me by the bar. Man, I don't know what's going on, he said quietly, but you've got 2 choices tonight. Play the part or walk away. I wanted to tell him he didn't understand, but he did. He always had. The DJ announced our first dance. I took Emily's hand, and she smiled up at me, perfectly composed, as if the conversation with her father had never happened. We swayed to the music, her perfume familiar and yet foreign somehow. Everything okay? She asked. I searched her eyes. Is it? She blinked, her smile faltering for the first time all night. But before she could answer, the song ended, and applause swallowed the silence between us. The rest of the reception blurred together. Cake cutting, group photos, drunken toasts. I moved through it like an actor hitting his marks, nodding and smiling where required. Inside, I was unraveling. When the last guest left, we were finally alone in the honeymoon suite. Emily slipped off her shoes, humming as she unclasped her necklace. Emily, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. She turned, her brows knitting. What? I heard you. On the terrace. With your dad. She froze. Then slowly she sighed. Look, David, you know what he's like. He just wants the best for me. And you agreed with him, I said. My voice was quiet now, but it shook. You said we'd see how long it lasts. She hesitated, then shrugged. I was trying to calm him down. You're overreacting. Something inside me cracked. Overreacting? On our wedding night, the only thing you should have been doing was standing with me. Not laughing when he called me a loser. Her arms crossed. If you're going to get this sensitive every time my dad opens his mouth, this is going to be a long marriage. I stared at her, realizing that the woman I thought was my partner was someone else entirely. Someone who could stand by while I was humiliated. Someone who didn't see the man in front of her, only the bank account he didn't have. That night, I didn't touch her. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing Richard's voice in my head over and over. Not a real man. Just a broke loser. By morning, I'd made my decision. I packed my bag before she woke. I left the ring on the nightstand. Not because I couldn't be the man she wanted, but because I refused to become him. As I walked out of that hotel, the city was quiet, the streets still wet from an early rain. My heart was heavy, but my steps felt steady. Sometimes the truest act of love for yourself is walking away from the person who never truly saw you.